Okay. Good evening. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, the Honorable Secretary J. Johnson, my respected friends from the interfaith community and the members of the media, welcome to all Dallas area Muslim society. I would like to thank Secretary Johnson and the Department of Homeland Security for their dedications and their efforts in protecting our nation from all forms of security threats. I would like also to thank Mr. Secretary for speaking today to the representative of the Muslim community and for speaking to our nation from this mosque to send a message that we are united as one community and one nation against violence, extremism, against hate and discrimination. As the President Obama said, we cannot turn against one another by letting this fight be defined as a war between America and Islam. The Secretary, the Muslim community, has publicly and privately condemned and protested all forms of violent extremism that use Islam as justification. We have to remain united against all forms of violence. And we do appreciate the religious and interfaith leaders who are with us today, who represent this unity. They are the people who defend religious freedom for all. The Reverend John Bell Hayes, John, the United Christian Parish, I would like to thank her. Reverend Scott Johnson from the Oak Brook Church, Mr. Singh from the Sikh community, Catherine from the Shoulder to Shoulder, Rabbi Jerry Sarocher, the head of the Interfaith Conference of Washington Metropolitan Area, and Reverend Smith Cobbs, thank you very much, my friend, from the Trinity Presbyterian Church. Would like to thank also our law enforcement, who have been really first-line defender of our freedom. The Chief of Police of Fairfax County, Chief Russell. Thank you so much. They are the model and example for many Americans who work with Muslims community across the nation in this difficult time. Religious freedom is essential in building of a strong nation, and we as Muslim Americans cherish the religious freedom that we enjoy in the United States. That's why we also defended the religious freedom of minorities in majority Muslim countries. This mosque has helped to rebuild 2 churches that were burned down in Muslim majority countries. Muslim in America helped to rebuild churches in America. The African American churches were burned down. They collected money to do so. And we'll be gathering the Muslim scholars in Morocco to address religious freedom around the world. Mr. Secretary, violence, extremism, and terrorism that uses religious language is #1 enemy for our community because it destroys life, puts a strain on our liberties, and pursuit of our happiness. And it distorts the beautiful religion of Islam. The Secretary would like our children to be raised in a free society, those children that you met. And we offer them opportunities and have them to look to the future and to be treated as prospect, not suspect. We would like them to be raised with faith, not fear, with hope, not despair. As young adults and children that they see today, presence of you here represent that hope for them. We have parents of those children served in uniform. People have defended, Muslim people have defended this country. Some of them have lost their life. They are doctors and teachers, firefighters. No one should make them question their identity or second guess their belonging to this country. Mr. Secretary, I would like to thank you again today for coming together with us, standing against violence, extremism, hatred, and bigotry. Here, Honorable Mr. Secretary John Johnson, J. Johnson. I'd like to put this on you.
Oh, yes. Getting a special pin. All right. Thank you, Imam Magid, and thank you for your leadership in this community. It's nice to be back here. I want to thank the interfaith leaders who are up here with us, as well as other members of the community. I know I speak to most people in this room, including those up here with me, when I begin these remarks by saying, my fellow Americans. As I've said for some time now, we're in a new phase in the global terrorist threat. It includes terrorist-directed and terrorist-inspired attacks. It includes plots from overseas and the potential for the lone wolf actors in the homeland. This new phase requires a new approach to counterterrorism and homeland security. This must include outreach to Muslim communities across our country. Over the last 2 years, I've been to Boston, New York, Brooklyn, suburban Maryland, Minneapolis, Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, Houston, Los Angeles, and other places for this purpose. One of the most meaningful discussions I've had on this tour was in June of this year, here at the Adams Center, with Imam Magid and other leaders of this community. We began that session when Boy Scouts led the Pledge of Allegiance. In the wake of recent events, I return here today. My message today is this: in responding to this new environment, we must not vilify American Muslims. We must not throw a net of suspicion over American Muslims and an entire religion. We must not force American Muslims to run and hide and retreat to the shadows. This would be counter to our homeland security efforts, and it is un-American. Now, more than ever, it is time to work together to protect and defend our communities, our families, and our homeland. The reality is that there are 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. It is the second largest religion in the world, behind Christianity. 1 in 4 people on this planet are Muslim. Within the Muslim faith, which spreads across every continent of this planet, are sects as diverse as Christianity. Within this country alone, there are about 3 million Muslims. They include African Americans, Egyptian Americans, Indonesian Americans, Iraqi Americans, Syrian Americans, and many others of different races and skin colors. The overwhelming majority of American Muslims and Muslims worldwide are men, women, and children of peace who seek to live their lives in peace and want nothing to do with terrorism. Anyone who does not understand that does not understand Islam. The very essence of the Islamic faith is peace. The standard greeting, Assalamu alaikum, is peace be upon you. The principal victims of the so-called Islamic State and Al-Qaeda are Muslims. The 4 million men, women, and children who have left their homes in Syria as refugees are fleeing the very same terrorism and violence that we are concerned about. By now, Imam Magid and others, I hope you know that as long as I am Secretary of Homeland Security, I will continue to speak out against the discrimination, vilification, and isolation that American Muslims face in these challenging times. Now I have an ask. It is an ask of the people in this room and all Muslims across this country. Terrorist organizations overseas have targeted your communities. They seek to pull your youth into the pit of violent extremism. Help us to help you stop this. If you see something, say something. This is more than a slogan. If you see someone turning toward violence, say something. Say something to law enforcement or to one of you in your community or your religious leaders. When people self-radicalize, someone close to them is almost always in a position to see the signs. Help us to help you amplify your message about the true meaning of Islam as a religion of peace. Help us to help you warn young people about the barbaric, oppressive, and dangerous nature of ISIL and the danger of traveling to a place like Syria. Encourage your youth to challenge their peers. Encourage your youth that if they see someone attracted to ISIL's message, they tell them that there is a better way to change the world without violence. Most of all, do not become bitter. Do not lose faith. Have faith in this country. Over and over again in the life of this nation, there have been classes of people who, by virtue of their race, religion, or nationality, exist on the margins of society, who are the object of prejudice, scorn, and suspicion, and who seek to win acceptance. It is also the tradition of this great nation that ultimately those who once existed on the margins of society become part of the fabric of our society. In 1949, during the McCarthy era, the Red Scare, my own grandfather was called upon to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee to deny that he was a member of the Communist Party and to defend the patriotism of African Americans. Today, his grandson is responsible for the homeland security of this entire nation. 1 month before my grandfather died in 1956, and this was in the era of Jim Crow, the segregated South, before the civil rights movement and laws, he said something that I believe today. Quote, "Bitterness grows out of hopelessness, and there is no hopelessness in this situation, however uncomfortable and menacing it may be at times. Faith in the ultimate strength of the democratic philosophy and code of this nation as a whole has always been stronger than the impulse to despair." Thank you again. Thank you to the Adams Center for welcoming me back. As I said before, now more than ever, it is time to work together, build bridges, and pursue a more perfect union. Thank you. All right, we'll take a couple of questions. Yes, sir. Can you tell me who you are, please?
I'm Bruce Leshan from WSA9 CBS here in D.C. Donald Trump today called for a complete shutdown of all Muslims entering America. I didn't expect you to wade into the politics of it, but
I'm glad you don't expect me to wade into the
from a
politics.
strategic perspective and from a security perspective, does that make any sense? And I'd like to hear from the Imam, too.
I do not comment on what candidates for office say during this political season. I think that the remarks that I just delivered speak for themselves in this regard. Thank you.
Imam?
Imam.
Oh,
Okay, all right. Yes, ma'am.
Muslims, I'm Kylie Morris from Britain's Channel 4 News. Just to revisit that, Muslims in America are always asked to condemn the inflammatory rhetoric of fundamentalists. So why can't you condemn the inflammatory rhetoric of Donald Trump? Isn't this kind of rhetoric, this kind of political language, making your job that much more difficult?
I have spoken here today. I have spoken numerous other places, including in Fulton, Missouri at Westminster College in September, about what I believe to be the obligation of those of us in public office and those who aspire to public office and command a microphone to be responsible in our rhetoric, responsible in our suggestions, and not suggest things that are overheated and are responsible. I have said that on numerous occasions, and I say it here again today.
So do you condemn his words?
My remarks speak for themselves. Yes, sir, right here.
Mr. Secretary, Magid with Fox News. Last month, you spoke at the CyberCon conference in Virginia to the U.S. tech sector, and you voiced a call for action, in essence, to the tech community in countering extremist message via social media. We now know that one of the suspects in the San Bernardino attack used Facebook to pledge allegiance to the ISIS leader. What specifically can the private sector do to help the U.S. government stave off this message online and on social media?
I think the private sector, the tech sector, can help people like the Imam with a larger microphone, a larger platform. The message is not a government message. And so I'm interested in seeing the tech sector come together with leaders in the Muslim community to provide a larger platform for that counter message, to provide a larger microphone. We recently announced the formation of an Office for Community Partnerships in DHS, and one of the missions that I have given George Salim, who's the director of that office, is to do what we can to match up community leaders with the tech sector, and we've begun to do that. Yes, sir, right here.
Yes, Mohamed, BBC Secretary, how do you
Which news organization, sorry?
BBC how do you evaluate your engagement with the so far, and there are some feeling against the community, what kind of steps that you are trying to take to assure them that they are safe and they can engage with you as
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your last part of it.
How do you evaluate your engagement?
Oh, yes. Well, given the nature of this work, there are no readily available quantifiable metrics, but I've been to something like 10 or 11 cities now, major metropolitan areas, to engage in this conversation, listen to the community. I have my ask, and I'm going to keep doing this. My goal is to continue to do this for as long as I'm secretary, and to bring as many of you in the press with me to amplify this message. I think it's important, and every time I go out to a place like this, I meet interesting, terrific new people, like the people up here with me, and we're going to just keep doing this in as many places as possible, as much as time will permit. Yes, ma'am.
With Al Arabiya, when you say your ask is for people if they see something to say something, I mean, I think a lot of Americans would say that's what happens on a lot of flights when people see, Muslim or Arab Americans speaking in a different language or looking different, and they go to flight attendants and they get kicked off of, flights. So, what a member, an official or a member, security official, would say is something suspicious is different than asking normal people to kind of self-evaluate.
Good question, and I'm glad you asked. If you see something, say something means conduct, behavior, suspicious behavior. It does not mean the color of a person's skin. It does not mean a person's language or a person's accent or a person's clothing. It means suspicious behavior. As I said, there are 1.6 billion Muslims on this planet. 1 in 4 people on this earth are Muslim. There are a lot of Muslims in this world. So you ask people, if you see something, say something. We're talking about suspicious behavior. We're talking about a package, an unattended suitcase, someone engaging in suspicious behavior, not something by virtue of someone's identity. Okay, one more question. Gentleman in the back with the tie on.
Nick Bennis from New York Times. You spoke this morning about changes coming to publicly warned about terror threats. Can you say anything more about why that's coming right now, and also what that kind of new categorization might look like?
This is something that we've been working on for several months now, and I will have more to say about it in the coming days. I want to leave something for the day I actually announce it. So thank you. Okay, one more question. Yes, Donna, right back there. Yes. Well, what I said in my prepared remarks speak for themselves. We are doing a number of things. Militarily, in law enforcement, in our intelligence community, but in addition, given the new phase that we are in, it requires a whole-of-government approach, enhanced federal protection service at federal buildings, enhanced aviation security. We continually evaluate whether more is necessary. We made enhancements in the security of the visa waiver program last year, and I announced more again this August. Congress is interested in working with us on that. I'm interested to see Congress do something effective in this area, and I hope that they will. We will see a bill offered in Congress in the next day or so to help us enhance the security of the visa waiver program. And engagements like this are also critical, in addition to a number of other things that we're doing. Tomorrow, I fly to London to have a conference with my European ministerial counterparts about greater information sharing, about greater security in Europe, to talk to them about some of the things we'd like to see European countries do in terms of collecting what we refer to as API, Advanced Passenger Information, PNR, passenger name recognition. This is a conversation that I'll be having with my European counterparts on Thursday. We've continued that conversation from prior ministerials. I think that there is a fair amount of urgency in Europe to work with us on this. So I'm hoping that we will have productive conversations. And it's just a range of things that we're doing that I've laid out previously in remarks this morning. And we always evaluate whether more is necessary. In Homeland Security, you take a step and then you continue to evaluate whether more is necessary based on the current environment. My main message here today is twofold. One, the answer to the current environment, the answer to what we see in terms of the global terrorist threat is to not vilify an entire religion. And I do have an ask of our community leaders here in this country and the American Muslim communities in this country, which is that if you see something, say something. Terrorist organizations are targeting the young people in these communities. And so we are in a position to work together and to help each other. Given how the global terrorist threat has evolved, I believe that engagements such as these have become essential to our efforts. Thanks a lot, everybody.
You plan to hire Muslims?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Again, we thank the Honorable Secretary Johnson for being here. He has to leave, and again, we appreciate his leadership and commitment to national security and civil rights. And so he has a one-on-one interview right now. The rest of our faith leaders will be available for a question. Imam Magid is available for a question up here. And the rest of the faith leaders are also available as well for question and answer. And we may hear some remarks as well. So we'll let the Secretary leave, and if you would like to ask a question. Okay. Anybody have a question for the Imam? You want to ask it here? Okay. Yeah. All right. One-on-one after. Okay. All right. So what we will do is the clergy that we have here will be available for interviews one-on-one. The rabbis, the pastors, and Imam Magid, Brother Bob Morrow,